All right, so for those of you who have a pond and you've maybe winterized it yourself, or even we've gone to winterize it for you, one of the challenges we can have in the wintertime is what we have here. We get lots of calls about, oh my God, my pond is frozen over. What do I do? Worst thing you could do for the fish is take a hammer and break the ice. Sound waves and pressure waves travel through water really well. So if I hit the ice, it's like you hit your fish. So better way to do it would be you could potentially cut through the ice if you had some tool that could saw through ice, preferably not an electric power tool. But the other way is just to try to use hot water. Now, the other thing we could have done, we didn't have this pond set up last year with fish in it, so it doesn't matter if there's no fish, ice isn't going to hurt your pond. It can freeze over all at once. When there's something, a living aquatic organism in it, we have to be wary of gas buildup under the ice. And by gas, it's the decomposing organic matter that's producing methane and that sort of gas under the ice. And that can build up in the water column and cause harm to the fish, possibly killing them over the winter. So most of keeping an open space in the ice is to allow gas exchange at the surface so that you don't get an accumulation of toxic gas under the ice. So two ways we can do that. I usually would have put a redundant system in here. This year we got to everybody else's first, ours last. And here I am stuck in the position of I got a frozen pond. Usually I put two ways of keeping the ice clear. Primary is usually an aerator. I have an aerator, it's a small one back here. For some reason, it's not pushing enough air. So here we are at -10 with a problem with the aerator. What I should have done initially is put a heater in or leave a small pump in the water so that if one device fails, I can always plug the second one in, because in February is no time to be trying to figure out how to free up the ice in your pond. So heater is probably the most expensive one to run because it's a small 300-watt element that's running all the time. It has a thermostat, but if it's really cold, it runs all the time. But it does a great job at keeping the ice clear. Aerator uses very little power, but not only it helps oxygenate the water, it also, the bubbles keep the ice from forming on the surface. So aerator's primary, heater would be my last choice. This pond's quite deep, so leaving a little pump running in it really wouldn't help the surface much. So in this one, these would be my two best options. So I'm going to try to melt the ice here. So this only happened overnight, so the ice shouldn't be very thick. And my little aerator is probably still pushing a bit of air in here, but not as much as I would like for a pond this deep. So even there already, I've melted through the ice. It was probably almost an inch thick. This bit of hot water I'm pouring it onto ice, and this is about 4 feet deep. So a couple of gallons of hot water shouldn't change the water temperature enough to disturb the fish. So I'm just trying to get a space big enough that I can not only get the new aerator through it, but we'll also let the heater sit in the proper orientation. There we go. So the water in there is probably a balmy 35 degrees Fahrenheit. So now I don't see any, I hear my other little aerator here is running, but I don't see any bubbles. So that's telling me something is either blocking the aerators, something's blocked the tube, maybe the little diaphragm's not able to push air anymore. So not much I can do about that this time of year. But what I am going to do is put a bigger one in, because I have two fish in here that are probably 18 inches long or bigger, 28 years old. So I really don't want them to be uncomfortable for the winter. Some of these aerators come with an awful lot of tubing, depending on how close you can get your aerator to the pond or how close your outlet. Mine's very close. Ground fault protected outlet, so you don't want to be plugging these in ideally with extension cords into non-protected outlets, because you are putting an electrical device in your water. So if all goes well here, I'll just move that over a bit so you can see how many. So now I've got lots of bubbles coming to the surface. So it's amazing how big an area in the ice that'll keep clear. They do this for stocked ponds, small lakes sometimes, to keep the ice from forming too thick. Now I'm also going to put a heater in this time, so I don't have to go through the exercise of trying to melt the ice. So, but again, I'm not going to, I can plug this one in for now just to see that the light comes on top. Now, if you were putting a heater in with an aerator, you wouldn't want to put the heater right next to the aerator if you wanted to plug them both in, because the aerator stirring up the cold water is going to trick the heater into turning on too often. So you'd want to keep the two away from each other. But my intent is to not turn the heater on unless the aerator is stopped, so I don't have to worry about that problem. So I'm going to unplug that one since it doesn't work. Plug you in, and right now the light on top of this heater is red. So this heater, when the light's red, it's on. When it's turned itself off but still has power, it turns to blue. So you at least know that your outlet's working, it's getting energy, and it's quite normal for it to cycle red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, because it heats up a little bit of water around it, goes, hey, I'm warm, turns itself off, and it doesn't take very long for it to cool down again. So I'm not going to even try to see where my fish might be hiding in here. All I can hope is that since this was only for maybe a day, since it dropped to -15 last night, that there's not enough organic matter in here to build up under the ice to cause a problem that quickly. So the cleaner the pond, the less issues you could have in the winter. But having a couple of 28-year-old fish in here, I didn't want to take the chance. So here we are on a balmy December day dealing with a pond issue.
How much of the surface needs to be unfrozen?
Ideally, it just needs enough that you're getting some gas exchange. So even the heater, it might freeze to a little circle around it, but since the gas in the water rises, it will escape through whatever opening you have. What I was worried here is I have another pond at my house that with the aerator running, I have about 4 feet open, and this one had none. So that was telling me something's probably wrong with the aerator. Even with an aerator, it could freeze solid over top, but as long as you can see bubbles under the ice, then that gas under the ice is escaping somewhere. You know, you might not be able to see it, but otherwise it would turn it into a big ice bubble. So since that usually doesn't happen, then that gas is escaping and it's taking all the methane and so forth with it. So we don't have, the fish aren't respiring much in the winter. We're not too worried about carbon dioxide buildup. It's more toxic gases than that. So hopefully Skinny and Chubby are okay down there, and we will see them in the spring.